Well, welcome again, and it's so I'm so excited to be here. You know, as a minister, when you're sitting here and you're listening to the songs, and you're like, "Oh gosh, I should leave that out of my talk. I should put this back into my talk." And you're running through it time and time again, and Spirit comes in and says, "You've done enough now. Just look at all the people here to hear the words." And so, it's just so interesting because when you hear inspirational things, they instantly change your mental attitude. They instantly change, it just instantly change. It puts you into that, I call it the sacred flow of everything's feeling all right. There's a song, the sacred flow, everything's feeling all right. All right, now I want to know if you've heard about the man who suffered a heart attack. Has anybody heard about this man? Well, a man suffered a serious heart attack and had to have open heart surgery. He awoke to find himself in the care of a Catholic nun in a Catholic hospital. He was recovering, and the nun came to ask him how he was going to pay for his services. He was asked if he had health insurance, and he said no. Weakly, he said, "I have no money." And the nun asked him if he had a bank account that he might have forgotten about. And he said, "No, I have no money in the bank." She said, "Do you have a relative that could help you?" And he said, "I only have a spinster sister, and she's a nun." The nun was agitated, and she said, "Nuns aren't spinsters. They're married to God." Which he said, "Well, go ask my brother-in-law for the money." I thought that was funny, but I really didn't want to talk about a heart attack after Jackson's beautiful song. Well, today we are the power together. So when I was thinking about this topic, I really wanted to think about this idea that we say, we can make a world that works for everyone. And I always say, well, you need to make a world that works for you. And we are teaching practitioner class right now, and it is a lot of fun. We're having a great time. And I was telling them that the other Sunday when I was here, somebody brought in a couple boxes, and inside the boxes were Dr. Bob, who was the first minister of this center, some of his belongings. And somehow they ended up outside, and we had Jim and Bill bring them in, and we got to go through them. And one of the things in there is this book by Frederick Bales. Now, what I find interesting about this is I've written 3 classes over the course of my tenure in the last 12, 13 years, and all of them have been by Frederick Bales. I love his books. I'm very drawn to his teaching, and I didn't know much about him. But in Dr. Bob's boxes were things on Buddhism, Frederick Bales, and Joel Goldsmith. And those are the 3 things that I came up with, and I thought, well, that's why I'm here, because the energy resonates. Well, when I opened this book, I really wanted to understand a little bit more about him. I didn't know that he was a wonderful New Thought teacher in his own right. He actually coined the phrase science of mind, and went around. He was born in New Zealand, traveled and traversed just like Ernest Holmes did, speaking to the masses, healed himself of diabetes before there was insulin through the power of mind. Him and Ernest Holmes came together at some point. Religious science and science of mind merged, and they worked together in California at the Church of Religious Science for many years, and then he went back to his science of mind. So in his own right, he is looked at just as Ernest Holmes was. And one of the things that he says at the front of this book is the greatest need of the entire world today is for a quiet mind. In every stratum of society, in every town and village, the individual hungers for serenity and peace. Throughout the ages, man has attempted to produce world peace by exterior methods of force. He has failed because true peace must always arise from a genuine spirit of good from within. So this is what I love about this, and it kind of solidifies my, we're creating a world that works for everybody, but really we have to create that world in here, because in here is where the world is created. There is one reality, and we are using the one mind to create the reality. And so Frederick Bales really talked about in this really lovely book, in 10 lessons, so the basic principles of the science of mind. Learn how you can heal your mind and fulfill your deepest desires. So what I really liked about it was it goes back to the basic principles. And in order to have a power together, in order for us to have that on a smaller level, power together, we have to go within and look and see how we're using our minds. And in this particular case, how we use our mind as a community. And then there is power together, because we are looking at our discordant thoughts as we walk in and out the door about what we want, what we don't want. And the seeds planted in our mind, become our reality. So what I found interesting was going back to revisit the idea of the power of mind and what is mind. And so this talk might be a little heady, more than my usual comical flair. But I really wanted to really talk about that. Dr. Bales shows us that the mind is an extraordinary tool for creating experiences, he says, shaping our reality and even healing our bodies. Through understanding the surface mind, which we often call our objective reality, and the deeper mind, our subjective mind, is how we would refer to it within our organization, that we recognize the power of a choice and aligning with the wisdom of healing. So we are aligning with the wisdom of healing. So when we talk about the word healing, we often, what comes to mind is health. But there can be a healing in a community. There can be a healing in a marriage. There can be a healing with our children, with our pets, our animals, nature, our world. So we are talking about how can we use our mind as a collective to go within and really think about what we want as a community and plant those seeds. What I found interesting was, when I'm getting dressed in the morning, I'm grabbing my malas, and sometimes they grab me. And for some reason, I picked this one. This was the very first mala that my husband bought for me. And as I was sitting here contemplating what I was going to talk about, I was holding this, and I remembered, oh yes, this opens. And this is like the mind of God. It is always open to you. And the seeds that you think, ooh, there's a message in there. The seeds that we plant go into this mind, and then we close it, and we forget about it, and we move on. And then they go into our deeper subconscious, and then when we are moving about life and we need to make choices, we use our surface mind to think, move, and be, and we use our deeper mind to create our realities. Now, this was a note from Kingston, my grandson. It was just a bunch of scribbles, and I'm not quite sure what it meant, but I think it meant enough to me to plant it in my storehouse, because when I opened it, it would bring me joy. So what thoughts are we planting that bring us joy? What seeds are we planting that help our mental attitude move in a positive direction each and every day? My message to my little self that I put in here when I got this mala, maybe almost 2017, quite some while ago, was love. Love, right? How do we love? How do we plant those seeds into our mind and to flourish and nourish and bring us the life that we want? Well, he says that there are many ways to do that. Point one for him was mind has two spheres to it. It has, the first one is the power to choose. So your surface mind, known as the conscious mind, is where we make our everyday choices. It's the part of us that reacts to situations, decides what to focus on, and determines what to think. So that's our conscious mind. I want to go to Starbucks. I want an iced tea. I want to do this. I don't want to do that. And then the deeper mind is the mind that's actually creating our reality. It's the storehouse of our experiences. Frederick Bale says, conscious mind is the selector of thoughts, and these beliefs are dropped into the creative soil of the subconscious mind and then become our reality. So we, in these bodies, were born with everything that we need. We are not separate from the one love. We are the one love. And because we have minds, and because we traverse and when we're born, we're named and we accumulate these identities, we also accumulate a certain orientation or navigation towards life. And depending on how difficult your life was or how wonderful is going to be your mental attitude towards life. It's going to be the thing that when you walk into a building, you might walk in and go, oh, this is a beautiful building. And I might walk in and go, oh, it needs new carpet. You might walk into a building and go, wow, there's a lot of people here. And I might walk into a building and go, oh, there's not enough. Right? And so we, in the storehouse for our finances, our jobs, our family, we have these different ideals, these different mental attitudes that we bring and project into the world based on how we were raised. So Frederick Bale says that study and practice and using your focus and your attention to become aware of your orientation and pausing when you hear that rumination, maybe something's gone wrong and there's that rumination. I know yesterday something happened and I was ruminating, and I caught myself. It was a habit, a rut and I caught myself going, wow, do you want to sit here and feel a little sorry for yourself? Or do you want to be present to Luke playing with his cars and the sun shining? And sometimes we get drawn into those old ideas and messages and those old storehouse of memories. But one thing that I recognize is if we get pulled into it and we don't stop and become aware of those orientations, we get more of the same thing in our life. We cannot change the outpicturing or the manifestation of our life. My teacher, Reverend Cheryl, always said to me, you don't need to know what you believe. We used to have this big conversation. I need to know my beliefs so I could look at them and change them. And she goes, well, they're right in front of you. It's your life. Do you like it or not? Right? And there were some parts of it that I liked and some parts that I wasn't so happy with. And so these are the parts that we have a tendency to focus on, right? Is the parts that we're not so happy with. So as a collective, when we're moving and breathing, it's not going to be any different. As a collective, we have a tendency to focus on the parts that we're not so happy with. So we have to become aware of this. And we have to then let me step back. You don't have to become aware of it, but if you want change, you might want to consider becoming aware of it. But I don't think that you end up in a place like this, studying a teacher like Frederick Bales or Ernest Holmes or the many New Thought leaders, if you do not want some type of change, whether it be more positive or more money or more of a loving relationship. And so Frederick Bales says to us that life, it's like being stuck in traffic and not wanting to be there. Well, you cannot want it all you want, but if you are in traffic and there's 80 cars this way and 80 cars that way, often like our trip home every Sunday, you have no other choice but to sit there in that moment. But the one thing that he says is those cars are going to eventually move. And if you look at your ideation or your train of thought about being stuck, oh, poor me, or it's a momentary time for me to go within and look at my belief systems and to get unstuck, change my mind about it. Well, how do we do that? Well, Frederick Bales says that you tap in to the one mind, the one power, the one life, the one love. He says that you sit, quiet mind, so you quiet your mind, and you start to write. You start to write about the circumstances of being stuck in traffic or not having the love of your life or, wanting to grow a community or wanting more money or wanting to be fulfilled. But the first thing he says is you must take responsibility for where your life is right now. You can't go anywhere unless you understand through the law your life was made. In practicing, I shared with my students, to me, love and law go together because love is that the law works. The universe is impermanent. It doesn't play favorites. It doesn't give Hazel more than it gives Tracey. It gives Tracey exactly what she believes consciously, and the storehouse of memories that she has bought into, and when they come up, there's a trigger, it comes up, it sends her into this, and then this is created. And it's my conscious mind's job to evaluate the situation, and if it's creating havoc or chaos in my life, and I don't like it, I need to take responsibility for it. And then I need to ask the great creative mind, the one universal power that you already are, that you just must tap into and push everything false away. And then all that remains is that one love, is that truth, is that flowing energy. But because we've been abiding from our beliefs and our identity and the way we move and think in the world, that seems foreign and separate to us. In one of my thought songs with my teacher, they were talking about Adam and Eve. They were talking about a Hindu version of Adam and Eve, and this gentleman read this poem, and he said, I wandered all over the world until I got to the door. And as I walked up to the steps, I took my shoes off. I'm paraphrasing, so if anyone knows this one, I'm shortening it for you. But he said, I walked up to the door, and I knew that you were there. And all I needed to do was open the door to be home with the one mind. And he said, I couldn't. I couldn't give up the world that was created for me to get to the doorstep. And it takes a lot to go through that door. We love the world and the objective form and all of the crazy nonsense that goes into it. Because if we didn't, we would be home, we would be free, we would be realized or liberated. But you know, so someone brought up Adam and Eve, and someone gave the analogy, and Tom said, you know, what I think is, here are two beings completely immersed in the one mind, the one creative power, the one thing, whatever you want to call it, and there was no separation, so there was no distortion that they didn't have anything on, or that they were a person even, because there was no identification other than they were who they were, right? There was no, I'm a dog, you're a cat, you're a person, I'm a person. To them, all of who they were in that flow. And then ego developed, and they stepped out of the flow, and separation began, and then they noticed that they didn't have anything on. And that's all that's going on here, is that and these beautiful, intelligent, intellectual prowess that we have that keeps us thinking and moving and wondering. And when we use it for entertainment purposes and to stay in the world and gain lots of information and store it in here, and we don't do anything with it, our lives continue at the same pace, and we have the same things to complain about. But when we use this beautiful mind to recognize the separation and to do the work and commit ourselves to it, to plant our new seed and build the trust. So Frederick Bale says, with each demonstration, your trust is built. And the more your trust is built, the more foundation you have to stay on, the more you give yourself to it until all of you is given, and all that remains is the one love, the one power. And in that, everything you need is present. There is no brain deciding what should be done. I was walking by my kitchen, and I stopped, saw the dishes, and I was like, oh, dishes need to be done. Now, usually I walk by the dishes and go, God, Bill put his dishes in the sink. There's Luke's cup. There's Kool-Aid on the floor. And, you know, I have all this thought, inertia about, well, I'm just going to leave those dishes. But what happens when you're in that flow, when you're in that loving presence, something's there, you just see it, you do it, you move on. Because there's no separation. There's no, it was explained to me at once, and then when I finally had the experience, I recognized we just do what we need to do. We are carrying out our duty always. It's the separation that says, I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that and I need to find my purpose. But when you join that one love, that oneness, when you spend time in quietude and you align yourself to that deeper sense and wisdom where all things are answered and given, then you are becoming it. Then you become it. And then you move from it. And then creation comes from there, and everything you need is provided. And there is not one person on this planet that is separate from it, because there is only one reality and many duplicity acting out through different folks. We're all inviting the characters into our lives in this recognition. I'll close with this. I came upon this gentleman on Instagram, and he was in prison for a very long time. And when he got out of prison, he wanted to change his life. And he knew that he could not change it by being in the same neighborhood, with the same people, with the same conversations. So he secluded himself and started reading the Bible. And then that led to Eckhart Tolle and some different books. And he had an awakening and a realization. And he said that he has never, from that moment forward, wanted for another thing, because all things were provided through his commitment to change his life. And he said it wasn't easy, but the desire to have that which he knew, the greatness that he felt was within him, when the separation fell away, he could see the lie. And so every day he starts with, hey, what's up? My heart, my friend, my day. And he smiles, and he has this brilliant Instagram, and he just makes people smile and laugh. And he said, I'm not here to be a teacher. I'm here to tell you, if I could move from prison and I could change my mind about my life, my family, my abuse, and I can live this joyful life every day, so can you. And that is the message from Frederick Bales. We must stop and take the time to understand how this works, how we can use it, how we can bring it in, do the work, reveal the heel, and live from that place. And you will never want for another thing again. And so it is. And we will just seat that in some prayer. We're going to go deep into that one mind, and I just ask you and your higher selves to collectively come into that space with me and let everything drop away and know only this truth. That this deep, innate wisdom, this wholeness that we are not separate from, only the idea separates us from it. That as we let that lie fall away, and we take a breath, and we consciously say, today, I dedicate, I commit to my spiritual journey, to knowing the deepest aspect of my true nature, the deep wisdom, the one mind, the one love, the one thing that is the same in all beings, which makes us look separate, but it isn't separate. It gives birth to everything that it's needed to itself. When that recognition comes, it pushes us even further into that wisdom. And as each demonstration builds our faith, it builds our trust that when times come that appear to be difficult, we know that we can go inward and command, even demand from the universe, the reality in which we would like to experience, to know something greater and different. That is your truth. It is my truth. That these words that are planted deep within, we just use them to recognize the path that we want to be in. And we see the incongruencies and we push them away, and we stand on this platform of love and say, here, now, today. I call it in, I call it forth, And I know that there is nothing separate from it, that this one love is you, this one love is me, and I proclaim it, I feel it, I know it, and it is so. For all beings, with all prayers and all desires, the answer lies within your hearts. Plant the seed and let it grow, and let it push out anything unlike itself to reveal the light and the love of the beloved as you, through you. I release these words and scatter them into the wind, knowing that what is planted in law must be revealed as wholeness, and so it is.